Hey, this is Tracy Lewis with Stuff and Things with another installment of the Many Mates bundle. Today I am going to walk through 3 different projects. They are the finished fronts that are stepped up from the stamping of a couple days ago. The first one, if you remember, the top stamp that I did I knew was a little bit crooked. So this particular project I needed to deal with straightening that up. As much as I wanted to ignore it, I just couldn't. So how I took care of it is with this layout. I think it's a fun layout. I like that I popped up the center and added the twine just to the center segment and ended up with a little bit fatter border. I used the trim from the Playful Pets combo pack and the new matte black dots in the mini catalog. So I thought this was a fun project, pretty easy, no fancy materials were used. The next 2, I decided I was going to go ahead and get into the die cuts. So these die cuts are pretty elaborate. There's the full die cut, and then 3 long slender die cuts, and here is an extra piece that I had cut for one of the projects. It works really well with metals. I really like how the metals look with this particular set. The die cuts are called the Many Medallions dies, and I want to offer up a couple of tips. The first big tip with the full die cut is every die cut machine is a little bit different. My die cut machine is what I would call pretty tight, and so for me, I can shim with thick cardstock, and I have like 5 different shim pieces that I add as many as I need, and this particular one I shimmed with 2 110 pound with my plates. I then also did a trick with the plates where, I don't know if you guys have heard of this one. Here is my cut. This is the plate that gets cut. It has years of being cut, and normally I put it through the machine with the cut and the paper, with the cuts facing down. So I was having a hard time, and all I did was reverse so that my cuts were facing up. I still had my 2 shims, and these are really old, very, very worn shims. Had my 2 shims, went through, and I went back and forth a few times, and it cut all the way through. On this particular die cut machine that I have now, I have never needed to add any washi to the back. But another thing you can do if you're going through over and over and you have a particular area that isn't getting cut, it is likely due to your plate being warped in that one section, but you can overcome that by just adding washi. I just have some here. This is the washi that I use to hold my smaller dies in place. So you can just add, and you don't need to add a lot, just add 1 layer at a time, and you might end up with 2 or 3 layers. And if this is the corner that isn't getting cut all the way through, a couple of rows of washi in addition to using your full sheets of shims should be plenty to get this cut. And I have not had many problems with any of the full, the Stampin' Up! Full sheet dies. And this came out beautiful with those tricks. So I didn't need to use the washi, but I did flip my normal layering that I use and used 2 of my shims. So that's the tricks I got for that. Now, once you have it all cut, how do you get all those little pieces out? Take your pick tool. As ordered, comes with a nice tool. I love it. You can pick up little bits with the sticky end. as a separate attachment, you can buy this brush, and it comes with foam. So you take your die cut, of which I have one done here, and look, there's even a little dot still in. So you put on your brush, have your handy trash nearby, you rub it or run it over, and then, oh, in fact, it got rid of the one that was sitting there. Any of these little dots, a couple of them were stuck, so I went ahead and used the poker tool, and this is what came out at the end, a perfect die cut. In fact, there's the one that I brushed through. So those are my tips. I will have the take your pick tool as well as the brush attachment on my blog. You definitely, for these more elaborate dies, are going to need a tool like that, and I highly recommend the Stampin' Up one. And the project that I have to show you has snuck away somewhere. I will be right back with it. All right, I found it. It was hiding. So the next project was the one that I used that had the Misty Moonlight frame that I just had sitting in my stash. I went ahead and added over the top of all the text the 3 patterns so I could show you how they look with the metallic, the silver. I then added, this looks somewhat masculine, and so I'm not going to add trim. And I did add these in color dots, 3 of them, and I think that this came out great. The third project uses the full sheet, and I've already taken a bunch of photos of this one because it has so many different ways that it can be laid out. And I'm going to show you the full set. This is Purple Posy on basic gray. I still haven't decided for putting it in my stash how I want to finish it off, but here are the different pieces that I've got. First we have, this is just white twine, and the pictures I took have the ends folded in. The simplest version of this card, which would be just fine for lots of people, is that right there. Let's see if I can hide these ends. Okay, that's better. All right, so we have the most basic version. It's your day. Now I cut a whole bunch of Purple Posy circles. Pretty much for my working with this project day after day, I decided on a kind of a theme, and with the die cuts being very angled like squares and rectangles, I thought that I would go with circles. So you will see this project and my my final day's project are going to be using circles. So the 2 sets that I used in the Purple Posy are the Playing with Patterns, which would be the circles and these lines with the watercolor wash, and the Pattern DSP in colors, which is this wood grain. Oh, and before I add the circles, I wanted to just show you what it would look like with cut out text. Now these text elements came, or these sentiments came from the inside of one of the first cards. I just took my snips and cut these out. And I think that you could pop those sentiments up as well as It's Your Day up and add some, I have some sequins here. These are from are, woven threads. The woven threads sequin assortment has some purple posies and white AB. So I think this looks great with the popped up sentiments. But for me, to put it in my stash, I would need yet more. So let's add the circles. This has felt like a really big paper pumpkin kit without supplies that I have to make. This has been a lot of fun. All right, so now we're going to add some circles. And without the sentiments, leaving on the twine, adding some sequins back on there, I have a little baby sequin for the bottom of It's Your Day. And you have to play around with the sequins and the circles to get it just right. And now we will add everything. All right, and when you do collages like this, try to keep things not perfect. The less perfect, I think, to the eye, the better. And that concludes the stepping up of the 3 beginner projects, card fronts that I did earlier in the week. And I have one last little bit to film for you, and that is I promised you measurements of this thanks card. So this thanks card has a lot of pieces, but it's pretty quick to put together. It has well suited is the DSP that I've used, both the angled and the vertical stripes. This is a nice masculine card, I believe, even with the stitching. The circle is a 2.5-inch circle. In fact, so I wouldn't forget, I put all the measurements. So the 3 mats are all 5.5 tall. 3 inches is the smallest, 3.25 by 5.5, or if you wanted to save material, both the next 2 mat sizes could just be strips that you added. I went ahead and went with the full width pieces, 3.25 by 5.5 and 4 inches. And then you'll see this fun whimsical stitching. It is a new die set in the mini catalog, and I wanted to point one thing out about this die set that is very cool. You'll notice that there's no cut outline on the outside of these, so that you can use them, you know, if I wanted to have the stitched coming in as a repeated pattern on the pinstriped, I could. And then when I cut out the thanks, I actually started with pretty wide margins of around the stitching, and went ahead and was able to cut it in to as close as I wanted to get the look that I was after. So I really appreciate Stampin' Up's design team coming up with not putting the cutouts on the outside of these stitchings so that you can use them for more pieces and more different uses of them. I added the matte dots and then the baker's twine, and that concludes today's video. The next video is going to be a quick Stamparatus demo walking through a card where I, again, did multiple sentiments, and I wanted all of the sentiments to be done at the same time, which requires either perfect alignment abilities, which I do not have, or the use of a tool like the Stamparatus. So you will see that tomorrow, and then I will finish off with my Avid project, which is very cool. So let me know what you think by leaving comments, questions, or suggestions here on this video or over on my blog. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.